What's going on, guys? It is a Monday. It is 9:30. Thank you a ton for being here. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kegges. We are coming at you live tonight on News 6 Plus and on the News 6 YouTube page. Again, thank you for being here. Hope everybody had a great weekend. It was wet for some, maybe not so much for others. It was a very split weekend forecast, as we talked about on Friday. We're going to get into that. It was certainly rainy across most of Central Florida today. And then along the coast, I'm watching for you guys, especially for the potential for some coastal flooding, not brought on by any storm, but brought on by the high astronomical tides. It is time for the king tide, and that's going to cause some issues. We'll also take a look at the tropics a little bit later on in the show. A couple of storms that we are watching out there. None of them pose a threat to Florida. We'll take a glimpse into long range. We normally get into that longer range segment on Tuesday, tomorrow, because that's going to coincide with what the Climate Prediction Center is going to come out with as well. So we're going to kind of put our forecast to the test of what they think and where we're going into the future as we get ready to roll. That should, by the way, that should take us to the end of October, because they have a 2-week forecast and a 3-week forecast. And that'll take us into the last week. I'm interested to see what they have to say, and we'll find out why in just a little bit. Post in the comments where you're tuning in from. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Elizabeth. Hey, Jody. What is going on? Kimberly, great to see everybody. Kevin, good evening. Hey, Kelly, what's up? Hope everybody is doing well tonight. Okay, so we're going to start along the coast this evening, and we're going to get kind of real science-y tonight, because we are going to talk about the tide. So let's get into that. First and foremost, okay, time out real quick. Take a look at how bright Daytona Beach is. I have the camera pointed right over the water. Delray Beach, there are no lights there. Has anybody been outside lately and taken a look at that full supermoon tonight? It is big, it is bright, and it is illuminating the cameras tonight along the coast, where I typically can't show you because it's night and there are no lights around. So thank you to WeatherStem for the use of their extensive camera network. You can see the rough surf out there, and you can see how high the tides are again. That is going to be something that we are watching going forward. We do have that stiff easterly breeze keeping things rough. That's one of the reasons why we have the coastal flood advisory. The main reason for it, though, are the higher than normal astronomical tides brought on by the king tide, brought on by gravitational tidal forces that we have with the sun, and more importantly, or more primarily, I should say, the moon. So if you're not familiar with how tides work, again, your low tides and high tides at the beach, you have these tidal bulges that develop because of the gravitational pull of the earth, and to a much lesser, or the gravitational pull of the moon, I should say, and to a much lesser degree, the sun. But you have these two tidal bulges, and as the earth rotates, it passes by. So that's why we get low tide and we get high tide as the earth kind of goes around. So you see that tidal bulge right there. When we're talking about a king tide, it is the kind of the combination of the sun lining up with the moon. So you get the big tidal force from the moon, plus the smaller but still non-negligible force of the sun. And the two of those kind of in a straight line like that, like you see pictured there, will kind of pull and push and pull and push. And that's where we get the king tides. These occur whenever we get perigee, or the closest approach that the moon makes to the earth. So that's what we are dealing with now. I mentioned at the start of the show how bright the moon is. We're under the influence of a supermoon. So we have the sun and moon kind of combining here to increase the tide, while we have the moon at perigee making its closest approach to the earth for the year. And the king tides, simply put, are the highest high tides, highest forecasted tides, just from astronomical forces of the year. Of course, that easterly breeze is not helping things at all, and that's one of the things that we are continuing to watch going forward. Now, there could be several supermoons of the year, because it might be off by a little bit. It might be just a little closer than the next, or they're about the same size away. But we're dealing with the harvest moon today, this afternoon, this evening, wherever we're at. And then the beaver moon comes November 5th, and then we have the cold moon on December. You can kind of guess why they're called that. Of course, it's harvest season. Beavers typically make their dams. They start gathering that stuff to make their dams in November. And look, I think December is kind of self-explanatory for why the December is called the cold moon. Because more often than not, it's starting to get cold, at least across a lot of places. Now, in addition to that, we are still under the influence of that stiff easterly breeze. So the combination of the king tide there and the easterly breeze is going to continue to push the Atlantic in. So again, coastal flooding issues are not brought on by rainfall. It can be bright sunshine and we can still have flooding along the coast when we have tidal forces at work in combination with a stiff easterly breeze. So a couple of things there going on, and that's why I'm watching that. For instance, the St. Johns River at Astor, if I have anybody watching that lives around that area, we are in moderate flood stage right now. So obviously we are hoping that things get better for our friends in Astor. But that combination has kind of forced up the St. Johns. Everybody know about the St. Johns River? It's almost like stand up. It's like stand up comedy. Anybody know about the St. Johns River? So the St. Johns River is a weird river. It flows from south to north. It is a very slow moving river. I believe it's one of the slowest in the country, if not even the world. So it takes naturally forever to drain out. The one thing that's terrible about the St. Johns, and unfortunately, since it's so slow moving, it takes a while to drain. Since it drains from south to north, it exits around Jacksonville, give or take, out into the Atlantic. But since we've had those hurricanes out there, we've had that strong easterly breeze pushing back on the river, exiting. And when we get that resistance, that northeast wind flowing against a northward flowing river, you get some pushback and then it kind of bulges up. So we are in moderate flood stage. Some of this brought on by recent rain, but most of this is because of that kind of, for lack of a better example, like storm surge. And that's kind of the deal with what's going on the St. Johns River. Yes, we've added some rain into the watershed, but we've also have these kind of things, and certainly king tide is not helping matters out by any means. Alrighty, guys. Stick around. We're going to get into the tropical section next if we have time, and certainly this is something that we're going to talk about going forward. The first big cold front for Florida standards is on the horizon. We're going to break that down, and we're going to take a look at when it arrives. We'll do that first, and then we'll get into the tropics. Stick around. I'll see you in 3 minutes. Alrighty, guys, it is a Monday night. Hope everybody is doing well. It is 9:30, October 6th. It's wild out there. Okay, so right on cue, we've made it to October, and I've got some good news if you are a fan. Man, the brightness, how bright these cameras are. Again, there's no light in Delray Beach. They shot in Daytona over the water. There's no light there either. That is how magnificent the full moon is tonight, the super moon tonight, the harvest moon tonight. Okay, anyway, said tonight enough. So here's the deal. Friday, cold front comes through. We will start to feel the effects here as we move into the weekend. Now, that blue shaded color there is the temperature anomaly. We are going to be probably about 5 to 7 degrees cooler than normal, and you're gonna feel it. Kimberly mentions, or Kelly mentions, excuse me, cold for Florida, 80 instead of 90. Okay, you're right about that, but it's gonna be a little more refreshing as we move into Sunday, especially, and then early next work week. This is the front that hopes to change everything. Although you do see the heat building back into the central part of the country with all that orange and red, that's gonna try to come down the pipeline as we move into the next week. We know this isn't forever. The water's still super warm. We're still going to be in this, and we are still going to warm up. Okay, so and question for you: is anybody that signed up for my Tropics Watch newsletter? It comes out every Monday at about 7:30, give or take. Came out this evening. Um, Let me know if you guys received it, if you are signed up for it. In that newsletter, and if you're not, you can go to clickorlando.com/newsletters. I think I have a QR code somewhere in here. Um, Let me see. I'll find it for after the break if you want to sign up for that. There's not that much time left in the season. But I talked about the MJO and the Central American Gyre. Both of those, so MJO and CAG, those are three things that we do not like. We don't like those letters combined because that means that when the MJO is coming through, it's like that steroid and it helps to pump up some stuff. So, what I want to show you now is again that potential and likely return of some favorability into the Atlantic. So, what we're looking at here is the vertical velocity anomaly. So anywhere you see green, that is where rising motion is, or air is rising. And the darker the green, the higher the anomaly. There's a lot going on here. I got to bust out my other telestrator on my other weather computer. But what we're looking at here is a pretty decent pulse of the MJO. Certainly, what is, things are looking like it's going to pass. There's been questions. We've always known that about this time, if you go back, I mean, what, a month ago, we were talking about late September into the middle of October. Um, I was unsure if the pulse would make it at the time. I'm getting more and more sure that the pulse is going to make it at the time. All of this green kind of takes over the Caribbean and then even into parts of the Atlantic. So that's right, is highlighted there. So that's going to be through October 13th. So I think over the next week, we're going to see a change. And by the way, on the Pacific side, where the thing is now, we have a tropical storm and a hurricane. So typically that's what happens. You see storms develop in the Pacific, and then the thing crosses the basin and comes into the Atlantic side, and then we get storms to develop there. The one thing you always have to watch again with the Central American Gyre, and that's going to be this very broad area of low pressure. Whoops, you're not even seeing it. Sorry, it was on the wrong thing. There are the tropical storm and the hurricane hanging out in the Eastern Pacific. That was induced by the MJO. So it is working its way, and the favorability is going to slide on over. It's likely a reason for all this thunderstorm activity. By the way, this thing is highlighted for potential development in the Bay of Campeche. But we'd be looking a little bit further down the line. Now, there's nothing really popping out on models. Okay, like there's really nothing right at the end there on the Spaghetti-O plot. That's going to be October 21st. there's a few little spaghettios, as this is called. This is the spaghettio chart because we're looking at the circles here. There are a few things that pop up. There's really nothing concrete. It would match the timeline for us to be watching something right in the Western Caribbean at about the third week of October. So I've long said that we need to dodge through the third week. And then we will see. The one nuance about the gyre is it's very broad at first, and then it kind of spits out its disturbance from there. So there is a shot that we get super active, but the gyre is spitting them out still into the Eastern Pacific, which would be the best possible thing because typically when they're in the Eastern Pacific, unless they curve towards the Baja Peninsula, they're not really affecting anything. So all of the above on that front is what we're going to be watching. And again, third week is probably the week, and then after that, I think we close the door on the hurricane season. We just have to watch. Again, nothing concrete, but there's certainly the opportunity in terms of the hurricane season and climatology. The handy dandy chart here. There always seems to be like a secondary October peak in October because being fueled by that. In the middle of October, it's right in the Atlantic. It's on our side. So the middle of October is where we're looking for an uptick in activity. If it in fact makes its way over here, it's becoming more increasingly likely that we do get that to cross over to the basin, but it has looked like a slam dunk before, and then it's kind of fizzled out. So I'm not ready to all right, it's happening, but the signal's growing for it, and we don't like that. We don't like when the signal's growing for that. When the kind of steroid injection meets up with climatology, it's never a good thing. So yeah. Nope, don't think we are screwed. Don't think we are screwed. You can go out whenever you want, Elizabeth. It's just depending upon what you like. The rain chances stay elevated again tomorrow, and then by Wednesday things kind of dry out a little bit. Alrighty, guys, I have to get my second break in. I will be right back in just 3 minutes. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Have a few minutes. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, just saying, hey, post them in the comments. Would love to hear from you. A couple other things here as we continue again. Tomorrow, I'm kind of, we'll go over the long range stuff in more detail tomorrow. For the fact that the Climate Prediction Center releases their long range outlook. I'm certainly expecting to see an uptick in the Western Caribbean. It has been quiet as a result of that. The tropical fuel, the climate, the tropical, um, what I'm showing you here, the tropical cyclone heat potential is off the charts pretty much. Anywhere it is red, we want to avoid a thunderstorm, a tropical system, anything in the worst way, because the fuel there would be considered extreme. So if anything that got going, and again, given the same thing with like wind shear and things like that, that's going to be that that would go gangbusters if we got a storm in the Western Caribbean right now. So we want to keep it out of there. We want to keep it out of the loop current. That's the thing here that kind of loops back around. Let me get my dabber out or my telestrator if it's going to play ball with me. This is the loop current here that kind of loops back over to the Gulf Stream. So we don't want anything anywhere near. Okay, just keep everything out of the Gulf. Easier said than done. That's been untapped this year. We really haven't had anything in there, and that's what we're going to be watching over the next kind of 14 days to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So Climate Prediction Center comes out with their areas to watch. Their update comes out tomorrow. Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. That's the big thing. That the temperatures of the sea, they're out of control right now there. The chart says the strongest MJO pulse signal yet. There's no doubt it would be the strongest pulse coming through. We saw it last year. We saw it kicking off with Helene again at the end of September. Obviously, we did not start that as early, but we didn't start it as early. However, we could have another push of several storms coming through as we get into the final weeks of October. Hopefully, it doesn't bleed over into November, but we will see. It certainly could be. It certainly could be. The thing is, like the Google AI isn't picking up on anything. Like I said, the Euro not picking. It's starting to get like a little hint that date it's cut off there, but that's the 21st. There's really nothing in there. There's nothing concrete over the next 2 weeks that modeling is trying to pick up as a result of that. There is the 15th. There's something trying to get going there down in the Gulf, and then it kind of bends over towards the Bay of Campeche or South Texas, which would be super weird because it's hard for things to go that way this time of the year as the jet stream's going this way and getting more involved into the weather down in these parts. Excuse me. But we will see. Alrighty, guys, I'm up against my time. Do me a favor. If this is your first time seeing the show, consider coming back. Would love to hang out with you guys more. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Again, we're here every Monday through Friday at 9:30. Tomorrow, it's going to be the long focus or the long range focus of the tropics. It's on a lot of people's mind. It was the focus of my newsletter today. So I'm going to kind of coincide that. I wanted to get all the king tide stuff there because that is of the more, I don't want to call it a huge concern, but it's just something that we're watching and wanted everybody to be aware of, that coastal flooding is certainly going to be an issue for the next couple of days because of the king tides. But tomorrow, to kind of coincide with the Climate Prediction Center's long range outlook, we're going to break that down in the long range further. We'll get into the nitty gritty of stuff. I've been taking notes of some of the questions that were coming up in the other thing, in the stuff and in the chat, and just some of the stuff that I want to show you guys going forward. All right, hope everybody's doing well tonight. Allie, hope you're doing well tonight. Appreciate you guys. that would certainly be ridiculous if Jerry from '89 hit Texas again, or this go around hit Texas. Jerry's probably going to steal the name out there though, so it's going to be the K Storm, which is Karen, and that opens up a whole nother. Can't wait to see the memes on that one. Let's hope we don't get there. Alrighty, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow night. Have a great evening. Be safe.